There is something inside of us. It's called the Imago Dei in Latin, which is the image of God. We're all created in his image, the Imago Dei. But there's another piece of that where one of the names for God is Elohim, and that's actually the name that speaks towards the creative element in all of us. So when we come up with a creative idea, I'll say, oh, that's the Elohim element.
Yeah.
But it may not even be in a person who's a believer. It could be in a musician that plays a song that just makes you cry. And you go, that's the Elohim element. That's God.
Words are powerful. Pastors, Jimmy and Annette.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So glad to have you here in really your hometown, Austin, Texas.
We're just down the street, about an hour and 15 minutes.
Wow.
Fredericksburg, Texas.
Wow. Wow. And I feel so blessed to be here with both of you.
Oh, likewise.
And talking about things that are so important to us, and spirit. And for me, it's through Christ, and I think for you, it's through Christ.
Absolutely.
And carnivore, how those things
Oh my goodness, yes.
changed our lives and human lives. And maybe you can just introduce yourselves briefly and tell us a little bit about yourselves and how we all sort of gotten to this point.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm Annette Pruitt. I've been married to Jimmy for 32 years, and just a privilege to be able to be here with you. As we began this journey of carnivore, we began to look at the different YouTube channels. And when we saw your YouTube channel and we heard your story and your vivacious life of carnivore, it really gave us the impetus to let's try this. Let's try this and see what we can do to help us physically and spiritually in our bodies. And it has changed our lives. We're pastors at Bridge Church in Fredericksburg, Texas, which is a little over an hour away from here. And we would be preaching today. He would. I don't preach on Sundays, but he would be preaching today. But we have our executive pastor preaching at our church today. And he actually went on carnivore the same time we did. We've been on it about 610 days.
Yes.
Wow.
But who's counting?
Yeah, who's counting? And he started the same time we did, but he lived in Nashville at the time, and we didn't know each of us had gone on this journey.
Wow.
And he's lost 88 pounds. So we're excited about him. And so he's at our church right now preaching and just bringing truth.
I love it.
We saw you online. We had found Carrie Mann.
Yeah.
We had found Dr. Barry, Anthony Chafee, and we were just doing what most people do when they step into the space. And that's, you want to get educated. You want to learn. And you want to learn from other people's stories. There's content as well, but stories. And so we stumbled onto you, and I think we caught one of your 5 a.m.
Yes.
Up in the morning. I get to do this, carpe diem, I'm tackling life. And I thought, that's my brother. I love this. This is a brother from another mother. I love this guy. And we just really enjoyed, we're high on life. We love what every day, 100 times a day, we get to do this. I say it over and over. My poor staff, they repeat it ad nauseum because we do. That's our attitude. You know, it's not an entitlement. It's not even a right. It's a privilege to do what we do. And that is to help people. We're on a mission to help people make a difference. We want to be difference makers, culture shapers, world changers. And we get to do that. We get to participate with people, but also with God, with our faith life. And Christ in us, the hope of glory, the Bible says. And so we get to do it, and it makes life an adventure. And so we're on this grand adventure. I've been doing this 40 years in my whole adult life. And I'm more excited about it today at 63 years of age than I was when I started. And I was pretty excited when I started.
Amazing. What brought you into the ministry?
Well, when I was not raised in church at all. My parents were good parents. My dad was a firefighter, first responder. My mom, so I was a latchkey kid. I grew up, this is terrible for carnivores, on Tony's pizzas and burritos, frozen burritos, because it was
and corn dogs from 7-Eleven.
Yeah, Gary's corn dogs. Fend for yourself, kids. And so I grew up oldest child, and so I was kind of the leader of the home, so to speak, and but without Christ. So I didn't have what I'd call a huge Christ consciousness growing up, even though my parents were good people, salt of the earth, West Texas people, good people, hardworking, good morals, but never church or anything like that. So it wasn't until high school that I found Christ, or better yet, he found me, pursued me. And I made a decision when I was 18 years of age I call it stepping over the line.
Wow.
To go all in.
Wow.
And I'm wired that way. I'm a total go all in kind of guy. I was an athlete, football player and all that. So it was always about going all in. And I was that way when I partied when I was a kid, but I was also that way as a young adult when I said, I want to go all in with this. I do believe that he is who he says he is. And so when I made that decision, there was a massive shift in my life, like plate tectonics type stuff. I mean, we lived on the San Andreas Fault for a season out in Southern California.
Oh, yeah.
We know what that's like. And man, we know those tremors and those shifts. And that was a shift for me, big. My family didn't know what to do with me. My dad said, hey, just don't become one of those weirdos and fanatics. I said, sorry, Dad, it's too late. I'm already there. And but over the years, what was beautiful as I continued to live my life out loud, so to speak, not pressuring, not pushing, but just living well, my whole family eventually stepped over the line through the years. And it's been beautiful to watch, see a family redeemed and come to common ground in their faith life, as well as just family. So during that time, 21 years of age, I started sensing a call to ministry. Didn't know what to do with that. I thought I was going to be a rock guitar player and
he plays lead
guitar player. So I thought that's going to be my thing. I'm going to be that guy on the platform, on the stage. And then God began to do something deep in me, a deep work, and I began to have this heart to make a difference, this heart to really shape culture and shift things and create opportunities to help change families' trees by helping them change the way they live. And it was through Christ. And I had good people around me, teaching me, helping me, walking with me, great church. And 21 years of age, I stepped over the line again, this time to do something that I would have never thought I would ever do. And that was stand before a crowd and make a living running my mouth. Who would have thought
And you're good at it.
Who would have thought I would be a preacher? I'm the kid who would take a F on a book report, or an incomplete if I had to present it orally. So because I was a jock, that was my whole life was that. And to see how God can flip a life and change things. So I stepped into the ministry at 21 years of age. Wow. Here I'm 63 and went to school for that. I got 2 degrees for that, bachelor's and master's degree, and been on this grand adventure ever since. And it is an adventure. People who tell me life is boring as a Christian, I'm like, you don't know Jesus. He was an outlaw. He was a wild man.
He was.
I just so thankful that I get to do what I get to do and that I'm still having fun at it.
Awesome.
At this age.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
A lot of pastors burn out, especially after 40 years. And he's had a lot of friends that have burned out that aren't in the ministry anymore because it can be a tough field to go into. And because you're dealing with a lot of grief, you're dealing with a lot of people who are just kind of living a minimal life and not living up in a down world, which is the name of our podcast. And so it can be really tough and people can come against you, but we love the church. And so it's been a blessing to be a part of it. We love what we do. We love what we do. And we married 32 years ago. I wasn't in the ministry. I didn't go into the ministry until after we were married. And we do this together.
And tell us a little bit about the suffering you went through and then how you transitioned in the carnivore lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of physical suffering, I mean, we did the same thing that everybody else did, the SAD, the standard American diet. Mm-hmm. And then we learned in the 70s, 80s, 90s, it would change every decade. It seemed like a different emphasis. Oh, you got to go low fat. You got to go. Yeah, I mean, it just, we followed what we were told to do because we grew up respecting authority and respecting the government. And so if the government says this is what you should eat and this is what a pyramid looks like, then by all means, if we do this, that equals healthy. Well, we didn't know. You don't know what you don't know, right? And so we followed the standard American. Now we worked out. We met in a gym actually, and we worked out together. We still do. That's something we've always done together. We've always been committed to health, but we were not educated. We weren't aware. We weren't awake to the truth. And so we just followed what we did, and we just did the best we can. We stayed in relatively good shape for who we are, but heart disease ran in my family. High cholesterol was a norm. High blood, hypertension was normal in my family. And so sure enough, I started to hit my 50s, and those things started to creep up. Well, my caring doctors, and they did care. They did what they knew to do. They put me on statins. They put me on Olsamartin, for my blood pressure. And I started beginning to collect the things I was taking. I was taking a lot of aspirin because of injuries. I thought were injuries, found out later that was just inflammation. That was hurting my knees and shoulders and joints, and lifting weights, became more painful through the years. So I was taking ibuprofen like candy, just trying to stave that off, not knowing that there was a better path and a better way.
When you had IBS, chronic IBS.
That was rough, yeah.
Wow. And he just thought, well, this is just what happens when you age. You didn't have any clue until someone told us about the carnivore diet, and it changed everything. I mean, immediately we received change in our bodies to where our joints quit hurting. And we heard through my son, we decided to try the ketogenic diet, which we've done before. And that was 2018. We were like, okay, let's just do the ketogenic. And then you life happens. Social, you get invited to social activities and things happen, and you kind of go off. And we decided, you know what, let's make a change now because we were feeling really bad. And my son told us about Dr. Jordan Peterson going on Rogan, and I didn't know who Jordan Peterson is at the time, but I thought, okay, well, let's just watch this. And when he began to talk about the changes in his daughter, especially his daughter, but himself too, and the different changes that were made in their lives immediately from doing this, we were like, what do we have to lose? We don't have anything to lose. Let's try this. We said 30 days. Let's just do it 30 days. Oh my goodness. When you start, you don't know how bad you feel until you feel good. And my doctor who put me on the ketogenic diet to begin with in 2018, when I told her that in 2000, I guess it was 23 that we went on this, when I told her we were doing the carnivore, she was thrilled.
Wow.
Because she had seen so many patients have better results even with carnivore. And that was very helpful to have someone in your corner, because when you go to these other doctors and they think you're crazy, that you need to stay on your meds, that's really hard. I think that's the hardest thing for people that are carnivores, finding the right doctors that have the right answers. And so for us, it was easy to stay on this because of that, because we had, the support of our doctor saying, keep going, keep going. And then I saw another doctor for another reason, and she said, you know what, I want to try this.
Wow.
Because after seeing your labs, and I have other patients that are coming in that are doing this, it's making me want to try this. That's what this is all about, telling your story and just getting it out there that this is the human diet. This is the proper diet that we're supposed to have. And it's changed our lives. Now, are we perfect? No, we like our French fries every now and then, a piece of cake every now and then.
We hear your voice.
We
Eat
the
do. French fry.
Okay. Time.
Carrie,
Yes,
Carrie doesn't like
exactly.
that, but he has a whole different story of major depression and so forth. I have a little bit of that, but not to the extent Carrie does. So I understand. But every now and then we'll go off for just, one meal or something, but not, I can't ever, the thought of going off of this and going back to the way of eating that we had before, we would probably die an early death. Honestly, I feel that because we just don't have the joint pain. And so forth that we had.
Emotional and mental improvements. Have you noticed those things?
100%.
Massive.
Yeah.
It really is massive because we, even our church, have seen a difference in how vivacious we are and how much energy we have. But it's just, I don't have fatigue. Fatigue, we know so many people. We have a daughter who has not gone over to this side yet, hopefully someday. She has PCOS. I want to talk to her about you and what you recommend. I got some of your material for her, but she has major fatigue. She's on antidepressants. She's just has so many pills.
She's a product of the system.
She is. She's a product of the system.
She's a poster child for the system.
Yeah. And so, but she doesn't want to believe that it's her diet. She just wants to believe that this is just generational or whatever.
Genetic,
yes, because she's adopted. Diseases. We don't know her father's side of medical history, and so she just thinks that we're just parents. We're just we don't have all the answers.
What do we know?
But she believes doctors. But the doctors she sees, they don't understand. They just want to give her more pills, more antidepressants. And so for us, we don't have that fatigue and do not have any depression.
Well, think about the mental clarity. And that was the big thing for me.
No fog.
I noticed brain fog. One writer, John Eldridge, calls it the fog of war, where you just feel that blanket over you. It's a loss of clarity. Now, being a pastor and having a multi-generational church, what we've seen a lot of are high incidences now of a predisposition to dementia or Alzheimer's, and we've watched this happen a lot.
Well, maybe let me ask the question. Tell me a little bit about your congregation and what type of things that you've seen going on in that, and how your experience is affecting their experience.
Wonderful. So we've been at this church 9 years. We feel like the only way we're going to move is down 6 feet. We love where we are. We enjoy being here, and it's been a wonderful ride for us. And I love the fact that we're multi-generational. It's not just an old church, not just a young. We've got just a great variety. It really looks like the community, and I love that. And so it's a good-sized church, so around 1,000 people. But what we've seen are high rates of I just say people are dying too young. They're going way before their time. I don't always believe that, you have X amount on this world, then God suddenly snatches you from the world. I think he gives us these bodies to steward. To take care of. And I think a lot of when we go is more up to us than we think. And so it's not just a time clock that suddenly runs out. And even if that's true, I still want to run strong to the finish. I want to finish well. So what I'm seeing is people are not finishing well. It's almost like, this is going to sound grotesque, but almost like they're dying before they're physically dead. There's such a loss of capacity. Physical, I see them going to a grocery store is painful for me now because I see people literally leaning over their baskets.
Just
putting more junk in and cereal and all kinds of stuff. And they're leaning. They're so filled with inflammation. Well, we see that in our church as well. We see people we love dearly come in on walkers and they can barely move and they're blown up. I mean, they literally look inflated. They're inflamed. And so we try to gently share. Most people, a lot of people just come to us. They've seen the difference in us. They see our energy, our vitality, our vibrancy, and they want to know. But not everybody does. Or when they do, and we tell them what we're doing, they just think that's
well.
crazy.
The first thing they say is, "You mean I can't have sugar?"
Yeah, that's it. My dessert. I've got to give up dessert.
We're like, well, do you want to feel better? Do you want to have that inflammation? Do you want your joints to continue hurting? Well, you've got to make sacrifices, and that's what this is about: is making the sacrifices. But they're for our own good. And I would much rather feel amazing every day than to continue eating the American diet and be dying slowly. I feel like we're reliving. It's almost like we've gained a whole new life.
Like rebirth.
Yeah.
Rebirth.
Physical
Yes,
rebirth.
yes.
And mental and spiritual. Because again, the vibrancy that we have. Jesus said it this way in John 10:10. He says, a thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. He says, but I came that you might have life and life to the full. I mean, we're meant to live a full life, a vibrant life.
With spirit and steak.
Yes,
Absolutely.
exactly.
Survive and thrive in more
Every time
amazing
I
ways.
cut into a ribeye, I go, this is not suffering.
Right.
I don't feel like I'm missing anything.
And I thought eating steak every day would be very hard, eating the same thing. It is not. It is, we're almost giddy when we cut into our steak because it's like, we get to have this.
So's our dog, by the way. Mr.
Our
Chevy
dog.
gets very excited when we
Yes.
fire up the pellet grill. He is like
Bacon and steak is his favorite. So yes, he's right at our feet.
How do we inspire our congregations, which really are our communities,
Yes.
Yeah.
our families, our neighbors, even our enemies, as we've labeled them in the past, are part of us? How do we help make those changes, do you think?
So there's two approaches. One is the very direct approach. Someone asks a question. I tend to not go where I'm not invited. So when someone asks a question, I'm saying, I'm really glad you asked that question. Yeah, here's what I'm doing. This is why my clothes fit well. It's why I can do 2 services back to back on a Sunday morning with 2 meetups in between and be on for hours without just staying full speed. People can't believe that we do 2 services. So we're there at 7:30 a.m. We don't leave till 1:30 or 2, and it's nonstop. Switch is on, and we're with people nonstop. And I'm an introvert, so that's really bizarre.
Oh,
And it is lit. It has so given me the energy I need, the vibrancy that people will ask questions. And we should live life in such a compelling way that people want to know what makes you tick. And that's your game right there. You live life so up that people want to know why. And I'm excited about aging. I don't fear it at all. I'm excited because the older I get, the more credibility I have in the carnivore space because people are starting to say, wow, I'm 58 and I feel terrible. I'm 49 and I feel like I'm
Or
done.
24, our own daughter.
Right.
Yeah.
But when they see somebody up in their 60s, alive, vibrant, in the gym, working out, unashamed, I mean, they want to know what makes you tick. In terms of a congregation, I found I have to go easy on that because people don't mind you talking about their life, their community, social life, relationships, their spiritual life. But you touch their refrigerator.
You're meddling.
Preacher, you gone to meddling
You're
now.
meddling.
You're not preaching anymore. You're meddling. What I found is that it's so personal. Food is so deeply,
it is.
because that's what addiction does. It's personal. It's deep.
I've always said that because on my side, it's like, well, changing your diet's like changing your religion. It's not so simple to do. And we hold tight to those things for sure. It's our culture. We grew up, we've evolved this way. A plant-based diet has been part of our evolution. And yet, what is the real thing that we're seeing so different? We're not eating at home, grandma, grandpa, mom and dad. It's the change in our family structures, our life structures. There's so much stress and challenges. There have been stress and challenges since the day we were all evolved from the primal mist. What is it what are your ideas on how we can begin to sort of share the switch for all of us?
First of all, it's living it out loud. It would be just like in my own faith life. I'm unashamed. I don't turn it off. I am who I am. It's in me and it is who I am. So I don't turn it off. Same way with living a carnivore way of life. I don't separate that. To me, it's mind, body, spirit. You can't separate those. And people try, and that's you can't compartmentalize to that degree. We're really good as Western thinkers, as Greek thinkers. We come from a Western mindset of separating things. It's interesting because the Eastern thinkers don't do that. They're much more holistic. So I like to try to lean into that Eastern mentality of saying, my mind, body, and spirit are not separate entities. Therefore, I don't go into a space and turn it off. I go into a space as who I am, a whole person, integrated, integrity. And that means whoever I'm around, you're just going to get me. Now, 20 years ago, I couldn't think like that. I wasn't there. But at this age and this season of life, it's not that I don't care. It's just I'm actually very comfortable and excited about who I am and who God's making me to be. So if we're in a conversation and I'm sitting at a table with people we've never met, and this happens a lot. People will take us out to dinner, new people in the church, and we sit down at a restaurant. We say, we'll have the double beef patty. Do you have cheddar cheese instead of American? Okay, you don't have the plastic cheese. Okay, good. And and we'll have bacon on that and no bun. They'll go, oh, okay.
Add an egg on top.
Yeah, and throw an egg on top, over easy, And we'll order like that. And we've learned to do it in a way that doesn't freak waiters and waitresses out too bad. It's still a little complicated, sometimes. Mm-hmm. But obviously, what are your friends going to do? What are you
not going to have a bun?
Aren't you worried about your cholesterol?
Yeah.
That's the first thing.
I love that question.
Yes, that always happens. Aren't you worried about your cholesterol? And we tell them, well, if you'll do your research, you'll realize we need cholesterol. It's good cholesterol that we've been sold a bill of goods that is not accurate at all. And so I think one of the questions we get a lot too as pastors is, well, what about Adam and Eve? What about the Bible? The Bible says we can have anything, we can eat anything, and address that because that's really
Genesis
important.
1:29 talks about eating grains, eat the grains, eat the seed plants and all that. And I say, well, if we actually had that kind of food, we probably could eat that and be fine. But we don't have that. Everything we have is genetically modified. Yeah. We're not eating real food. We're eating food that has been tampered with. Mm-hmm. And so that Bible's not addressing that directly. You can't, that's apples and oranges. You can't put those in the same basket.
Yeah.
And to me, I don't have a issue with that. That's a splitting hair thing on something that's not even accurate. So when I explain that, people go, oh yeah, you're right. I didn't think about that. I've not ever had anybody.
But that's probably the number one question we get. I would say, wouldn't you say that?
Because people like their salads.
Love it.
Actually, salad's just basically, the salad is a carrier for all the junk you put on top of it. That's what it was for me.
I call nature's toilet paper.
Really?
No matter what, you can't wash it off.
That was my favorite thing. That was part of what I loved about the ketogenic diet. I like a Caesar salad, but I don't need all the other stuff on there. But that was probably the hardest thing for me. And I still like to have an occasional salad, but I think the more information we receive, the more I want to back off of those things, because really information is golden. We need information from doctors like you who have studied this, who've been taught opposite, but now you know the truth. And so I think that's important for us to continue to educate ourselves by the right doctors that understand what's happening to us.
Tell us a little bit about the world. And I read a book a long time ago. Richard David Feynman wrote The World Turns Upside Down, and the food pyramid needs to be turned upside down. But the living up in a down world. Tell us a little bit about your podcast and your purpose in that.
So that actually is a theological reference. The Bible talks about, how after the garden, Adam and Eve, there was a fall. So it's called a fallen world. So I just took that and extrapolated that into a title, Living Up in a Down World, meaning the world we're in a hard place. I mean, there are challenges, there's traumas, there's things that happen in a fallen world. So living up in a down world is a mentality of we can actually supersede the darkness. We can be the light in the dark. It doesn't take much light to dispel darkness. We had a cellar when I was a kid, and you go down there with a pen light or a match, and it would light the whole place up. And yet, with the light off, you couldn't see your hand. And so I learned very quickly a simple principle: wherever there's light, darkness can't hang out. Yeah. It has to flee, right? And so living up in a down world is that idea. So what we have done, we've taken our painful journey at different times in our lives from our past, and we've said, how can we're on a mission to help people live up in a fallen world, a down world. And I love the world. I love the beauty. I love oceans and mountains. I don't think it's a down world in that sense. I think it's a beautiful place. but it's down in the sense of there's been a fall and culture has slid off the cliff at different seasons of history.
And people have had drama in their lives. I grew up in a very dysfunctional family, and then I was married for almost 13 years and abused. And so I had to come to my terms with my faith to get me through that. I needed hope to get me through my down world, so to speak. And so we are very transparent. We're transparent in the pulpit. Our church knows everything about us. We tell everything. And we think it's important that people see that we're not perfect, that we have had things come up in our life, drama that's come up in our life, but we've been able to overcome that because of Jesus. And that's where that comes from, too, is that's why we can live up in a down world, because we want to meet people where they're at and show them that there is hope. There is hope.
I think we've all lived that, and I think that's a normal human experience.
It is.
And that's why Jesus is there.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's so important for us to find that strength within each and every one of us.
Yes.
Because it's there, isn't it?
It is.
There is a light in the darkness.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. He says that we're to be salt and light. Salt preserves.
Yeah.
Salt seasons. Boy, don't we love our salt? I do.
That's my only seasoning.
I know.
I love mine. And salt preserves. But what does light do? It exposes, but it also illuminates so that you can see the path in front of you. The Bible says, my word is a lamp to your feet and a light to your path. So it's not a halogen. You don't see 5 miles down the road, but you see the next step. Mm-hmm. And as we follow him, we see the next step. Mm-hmm. You don't always see all the way. It'd be nice if we did, but we do. We're able to navigate the turns and twists of this world because his word is a lamp to our feet and a light to our path.
Which has always been the world.
Yes.
It's always been the world.
Yes.
The struggles and challenges are not new.
Right.
The diseases are not new. They've always been there. Mm-hmm. And how do we let go of the judgment of the way the world is and or the way our dietary advices be given and just look to our new light and follow a new path like carnivore?
I love that. That's a part of our mentality of living up in a down world. It's not about pointing the finger. We do need to call things out and speak truth. We speak truth because of love. We speak truth in love. It'd be like a father disciplining a child. I love you, so bend over. Here's the switch. Here we go. Here's your discipline. But it's a love thing, and it's not in terms of trying to point out. For example, my doctor, he's one of my best friends, but he's not totally on board with carnivore. But he's on board with me as a friend, as a person. So our human experience, our human interaction, he trusts my judgment. He trusts my judgment that I'm smart enough or wise enough that I'm not going to tank myself doing this. And he's been watching me. And now he doesn't even check my I did my last panel. He didn't even do my cholesterol.
I know.
Because he's like, it doesn't matter. You're going to blow it off anyway. But there is a sense of where we get to supersede the pain and the struggle. And we do get to be that light. We do get to help people navigate. Sometimes it's not by getting behind and pushing people. It's about stepping out and leading. Mm-hmm. So that being in that terms of an example and a life giver.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think carnivore helps us find leadership within?
No doubt. First of all, Scriptures even talks about fasting in the Bible a lot. It was very common practice first century. And I found that the first time I ever fasted, I did a 7-day fast. I allowed myself V8s. Remember, I was not a carnivore. I didn't know what I was drinking. But I thought this is good for me, right?
Right.
I need those. But I did a 7-day liquid fast. And about the 3rd or 4th day, something switched in me. I didn't know it was ketones and all that happening. I didn't know the science behind it. I just know that the fog lifted.
Wow.
I felt like I was on nitrous at the dentist office. Like everything was bright. Everything was clear. Like the world went into high definition. And that was about 3 days into that fast because I didn't realize my body was converting. Now I was burning fat. And I felt alive. I had energy. And I thought, this is weird. I totally did not expect that, because all we're taught is carbohydrates fuel you. You need more sugar. You need more,
especially if you work out.
Yeah, all that. But so the Bible talks about this. And I remember seeing in the scripture talking about fasting, what it does. And what I learned through that experience, and now subsequently in carnivore, that if I could master my appetite, I could master just about anything. If you can get the most primal thing in us is to eat. It's to fuel yourself. It's for survival. If you can master that primal drive, you can master anything, which means you can lead anything.
That's good.
I grew up ADHD, OCD, dyslexia, depression, migraines, bowel problems. I loved recess, but that's about it, because I wasn't good at anything else.
Wow.
And in like the 7th, 8th grade, I found myself kicked out of school in a gang, couldn't read still, and father in jail. And I believe that the diet that I grew up on was ultimately the cause of all those diseases. But we didn't know that, right? I remember going to the doctor with my grandmother or my mother, and so there's nothing wrong with you. You're fine. So just go off on your way and you do your thing. And in my 40s, like, suffered. And then I started Atkins and exercise and Weight Watchers, and, I looked good, but ultimately I had bowel bleeding, arthritis, psoriasis, migraines, kidney stones, and all of that. And I fell into paleo diet 20 plus years ago. Then I found keto, and nearly 15 years ago, I found carnivore, and that's when it all went away. And suddenly, depression, anxiety, worry, fear, because we sort of, I think I lived just like everything's out there I can't do. It's scary. And the veil, just like the light shined, and it came to a new place for me.
So how did you find carnivore?
Well, so 20 years ago, my patients, I was teaching them meditation, prayer, yoga, acupuncture, because stress and anxiety and fear were the number one reasons that people either never showed up or they left fertility treatments. But I knew that if you can keep going like anything else, the odds are always that it rises. People think it drops. It drops because people drop out, but it continues to rise, even that you might have a lower probability. And I was like, well, you got pregnant on paleo diet. What is that? Because I didn't know what paleo diet was. I knew Atkins, but that's about it. And my undergrad degree was a minor in nutritional biochemistry at the University of Southern California. So I trained in nutrition and biochemistry and all this stuff. And then I started, I got to learn about paleo diet. And I started paleo diet personally and shared it, and I got better. And then I tripped on keto diet, and I'm like, that's pretty amazing. My good friend Maria Emmerich, I read a lot of her stuff. And then I saw some guy on, I can't remember where, on the internet doing carnivore. And he was ripped. He didn't exercise, and he only ate meat. And I said, that one's for me. And from then on, I've been carnivore. Yes, I sometimes have some French fries or my ice cream.
Which we love, by the way.
Every now and then.
Again, treating is okay. I never label it as a cheat. I enjoy from time to time. And it's changed my life in so many ways because, and then COVID. And okay, what am I going to do now that I'm not going to work? Okay, I got to do something. Might as well go online. And then that's when I began to find all the people out there. I'm like, okay, wow, look at this community. It's pretty wild. And the more I realized that we can communicate and connect with infinitely more people on social media than I can in a doctor's office hoping to get someone to show up for an appointment. And so my job, I went into medicine. My sister Marianne died of diabetes at 52. She had it since age 4. And I'm like, okay, I understand why my sister Marianne died, saw her grow up with sickness, but she was always a positive person. My friend Dave Kilmer died at the same time at 52, and he was a healthy doctor. I said, okay, why did my healthy friend die? That's when I realized that the cause of all disease is a plant-based, low animal fat diet, 3 to 6 meals a day. And so I was like, okay, we got to make the changes. And here I am, and here we are from completely different aspects of life, realizing that there's something different that we need to be teaching.
Yes.
And Jesus Christ, he went out there.
He was a teacher. He was a
and
teacher.
He just kept at it. He didn't push anyone. He just kept sharing the message. And the flock showed up, and then we find ourselves lions again. And that's what my mission is in life. And to have this conversation, is everyone capable of these changes?
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
I do hear people push back because they say, I've got this condition or that. And I'm like, I'm not a doctor, but I know what cleared up in my life. And if my life can change this dramatically, so can yours. And then I will direct them to you.
We always
give
direct
you a
them to
link.
doctors. Yes.
Well, and again, I believe, obviously modern medicine in general, and doctors and healthcare is very important. And I'm not here to tear it down in any way. I want to actually build it up. And I'm hearing more doctors that are open to keto carnivore. I always ask my patients about their diet, exactly what they eat. They usually say healthy, clean, organic. And I usually ask them if they have a belief in God or a religion. And most people say either yes, or they say, no, but I'm spiritual. And I usually ask, well, what is spirituality and faith? Isn't that God? And then I ask, well, those that say, no, I don't believe in God or don't believe in spirit, I ask them, well, do you believe in yourself? And they usually say, oh, yeah, I do. I say, well, that's God, because God's within all of us. And this is such an amazing journey that we're on.
It is.
It is.
And what are your dreams and aspirations on your journey to keep sharing and inspiring all of us?
Well, I talk about mind, body, spirit. So those are 3 realms, not separate. They're connected, but there are separate emphases in each. And so our heart, as we continue to age out and age up towards something amazing, heaven, we want to grow in each of those areas, and we want to help other people to grow in all of those areas. I did a panel at my church where I had 4 LPC therapists from different disciplines on the platform with me on stools. I held a microphone and I teed up questions for them to talk about the intersection of faith and mental health.
Yeah.
And that was a shocker for churches, because a lot of churches don't step into those waters. More are now because the crisis has gotten so high. But my next bold adventure is to bring the physical, the health piece into this. I've had conversations with my staff. Some of my staff is very healthy. They eat well. Got one that's carnivore, another one that's looking at it, but eats very clean. And so it was even brought up recently, Pastor, it's time to open that door. It's time to step into that space in the pulpit and begin to, because I'm an educator. At the end of the day, I do inspire, I do encourage, I do lift up and build up, and I preach the Word of God. But a huge piece of that is that, or maybe even an overarching, is I'm an educator. So I have a responsibility to teach and educate people in that which is going to help them better their lives, navigate the complexities of this world, learn from and overcome their traumas in their past, and have a bright future. I always say our future's so bright, we've got to wear
sunglasses. Yeah.
It's that good and that rich. So that is, and what would you contribute
for
to
me,
that?
I think telling your stories. You have to tell your stories. For us, when we're preaching the gospel or telling people they need to preach the gospel, go into all the world and preach the gospel, we say, all you have to do is just tell your story. Where were you before Christ? Where are you now? It's so easy. You can do it in 2 minutes. You don't have to know the Bible. You just need to know what happened to you. Well, it's the same thing with carnivore. For me, I have a similar situation. My sister died of complications of type 2 diabetes. She went into kidney failure. And I did all the tests, found out I was a match. I was going to give her a kidney. And all of a sudden, she started having neuropathy in her feet. They were going to cut her feet off. She had just turned 70. 70, very young. But she was, the night, I'll never forget, the night we went in before to do all the testing in San Antonio at the hospital, she and her husband, we walked into the room and they were eating Whataburger. Now, I don't know if you know about Whataburger, but
it's a Texas thing.
It's a Texas hamburger that is phenomenal, but she's eating, the hamburger, the fries, the malt, everything. And we were at that point on the ketogenic diet, and we were just going, why is she going to go in and do all these cognitive tests and other kinds of tests? And her kidneys are failing, and she's eating that kind of food. It bothered us. So I kind of used that story because within 6 months, she had passed away. And now that we know what we know about carnivore, because we started keto and then went to carnivore, it's like she could have lived if she would have just changed her diet. It was all diet related. And everyone in my family has had type 2 diabetes and eventually passed. I want to stop that cycle. Mm-hmm. And so to me, telling your stories is so important.
Yeah.
It's why we have our podcast. We try to do a little bit of our carnivore talk on there, where we're at, what's happened with it. And I believe that's the way we're going to be able to get it out, is by telling our stories.
Yeah. Do you think that suffering helps strengthen your drive?
100%. 100%. As long as you use those sufferings as not failures, but a way to overcome what has happened to you, right?
Will Rogers had a great quote. He says, "I never trust a man who doesn't walk with a limp."
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one.
That is a very good one.
Yes.
Because really, what we go through in this life, I agree. I've never believed that suffering is to be avoided. It's a part of the human experience. Mm-hmm. Whatever your faith is, whatever your world is, it's just a part of living in this world. But how you respond to suffering is the key. That's what's critical. Is it going to be the thing that chains you down, or is the thing that makes you stronger and more resilient for the next level? Because I feel like we almost are going on these increasing levels of life and vibrancy and abundance and fullness. And when you respond well to pain, suffering, trauma, you actually, not only does it heal you, now you have the potential to heal others. Healed people heal people.
Mm-hmm.
And suffering is strengthening.
Absolutely.
And the story of Jesus Christ is a story of suffering.
Totally. He did it for us.
He did it for us. And yet there's strength in that story. And there's a community to share in that story. Maybe it's sort of, I don't believe in God, and I don't believe in carnivore. And I think, as you said, it's the example that you provide that is really the key, because when the blind can see, you can't force it to help them see.
Right.
Exactly.
And Jesus would use this phrase often in the New Testament. When he would do a teaching, he would say, "For those who have ears to hear," because not everybody does. I think that's the thing that grieves us, is when you do want to share your story and they don't have ears to hear. They're not ready to receive it. They're just not, they don't have the capacity yet to hear it. But maybe it's just not their time. Maybe another time they will. I have hope.
By the grace of God go on.
Exactly.
He determines all things. And so that's the patience we live. And we're so quick to sort of define our experiences are good or bad. But he creates everything. So ultimately, I imagine they're all good, but I often don't see it at the moment they happen.
Right.
Yes,
right.
well said. One of my deepest core values, in fact, my number one is, and it's simple, God is good. Period.
Always.
Period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All the time. All the time. In everything, through everything.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have that as a core value, so we pastored a multicultural church and they were fun. I mean, we had a half black congregation, 30% Hispanic. We were other. We were the other on the list. And we were 10 years with beautiful people. And they taught us things. And one of the things they'd say, God is good. I'd say, God is good. And they'd yell, all the time. I'd say, all the time, God is good. And that's something that they pulled out of their history and out of their culture and their background, that they believe that God is good no matter what. And that was something I learned from them. And that has become a core value, which means if that's true, I can navigate anything because there is an end game. There is something on the other side of this pain. And there's going to be greater resolve and strength, as you said.
What were some of the challenges that you faced in sort of the carnivore lifestyle?
For me, it was the social aspect because people, they don't know how to navigate that when they invite you to eat. They're like, for instance, we went to one couple's house and they knew we were carnivore and they made a vegetable for themselves, but they made a very small portion of meat. So we literally, they felt bad because we got our portions and they ate theirs and we were still starving. And that was a challenge. They kind of laughed afterwards, said, we didn't make enough. I'm like, well, when you're carnivore, you eat till you're full. And that's good. We'll cook dinner for you next time. But that was really a challenge for us. And then waiters and waitresses, they're like, what? You don't want the sides? You're paying for them. We're like,
Especially in Texas.
Especially in Texas.
They assume you want the baked potato and the fries or the bread, and they're bringing it all. We don't even bring the bread to the table. We don't even put it on our table. So those are not terrible things. Those are not the hard things. For us, it wasn't that hard because we did our on-ramp was keto.
Yeah.
So we had learned discipline and we had learned, and so that wasn't the hardest thing.
But the first 3 weeks, because of our digestive system,
that was
making the change, having to go to the bathroom, like you have to go.
We're very transparent about that.
We had some accidents along the way.
Yeah.
At the beginning. But a lot of people, I think the reason why they don't stick with it is because the first couple of weeks of changing over can be very difficult. And we knew we had to continue going through this in order to get to the other side. And once we did, everything changed. So that's probably one thing that we have to share with people when they say, well, I think I'll try it. It's like, get past the first couple of weeks that it can be difficult. You're going to need to stay by a bathroom. You don't know how your bowels are going to respond. And but then once you get through that, and a lot of people, they think they're going to lose the weight right then.
Right.
I think for us, it took about that 3 or 4 weeks before we started to see anything. But that's probably people need that determination and that willpower to get through that. So I would say that was probably the hardest, but we were determined because we heard the stories.
Yeah. One of the things that helped us too is we were determined to celebrate the wins, whether they were a millimeter or a mile. A lot of times people are looking for big, dramatic stuff. We weren't looking for epic. We were already in decent shape. We were already in pretty disciplined. So we didn't know what to expect. But when that brain fog lifted, when that energy, it was like a switch for us 3 weeks in, boom. And then when I continued to check my blood pressure, and it was coming down, and I was weaning off the Ultramartin, and my bowels were clearing up, I was like, that's all the incentive I need. So I didn't see it as a negative. The first 3 weeks, we stayed close to the bathroom. That's one of my counsel. Whatever you do, stay close to the bathroom. Just be wise. If you're at a conference, sit close to the door. There's little things you can do just to be wise. But other than that, it wasn't a challenge. It was very exciting for us because we did see changes very quickly.
I think you've equated to the magic pill that it's as close as it comes. It's quite amazing that the change we see in all of that. Little sort of shift and change and favorite books. Anything that you've sort of read that has really inspired you and keeps you sort of also, besides the Bible. I think the Bible for me is one of the best, but anything that you yonder to.
Yeah. Anything on your mind?
Oh, gosh.
I've got a couple.
Well, no, go ahead.
Okay.
While I'm thinking.
Well, C.S. Lewis has always been just an amazing individual, wrote the Chronicles of Narnia, but wrote a whole lot of just deeply theological books. Brilliant writer. He wrote a book called Mere Christianity, which is just one of the classics in that space. Another book that has been impactful for me, it's a little tiny book by a monk, a Spanish monk.
That's the one I was going to say.
In the 1600s, named Brother Lawrence. And it's called The Practice of the Presence of God.
Very
That
great.
little book changed my prayer life. Mm-hmm. He saw prayer, and by the way, he was lame in his legs. He was a cook in a monastery. He's about as low as you can go on the totem pole in terms of being a monk or someone in that monastery, and yet he was sought out by kings and nobles because of his deep relationship with God and his spirituality. He said, I would not bend down to pick up a twig off the ground except for the glory of God. Mm-hmm. He talked about cooking eggs in the monastery for the brothers for the glory of God. He made everything he did an act of worship, so that worship and prayer permeated every action of his life. He lived with what he calls a God consciousness, where he would have a running conversation with God. So he didn't think about, we always have an inner monologue running, right? It's just an autopilot. But he switched his inner monologue to a dialogue, so that everything he was doing, whether he was talking out loud or in his mind, he was talking with his Father. And it was substantial. And the book is just a short book of letters that he wrote to family and friends talking about this practice and some journal entries. That was deeply powerful. I had to go find it. It was recommended. Not being Catholic, I showed up at a diocese, large place. I found a nun of all people, and I said, ma'am, I'm just a Baptist kid, but I heard about this guy named Brother Lawrence. Do you know anything about him? And she laughed, walked me down to their library and helped me find that book. And she was precious.
How important is reading and listening to views that are opposite and different than we've been taught or raised with?
It's critical. I say context is king. Context in anything, whether you're reading the Bible, read the whole passage, not just lifting verses out and proof texting, but it's vital for life too. We need to know what other people are thinking, because whenever we get to a point where we think we can't learn from someone else, even someone we disagree with, something that's happened culturally is that it's sort of become a maxim: if you disagree with me, you must hate me. Yeah. That's been a terrible tragedy that's happened in recent times, recent history, where I love when I can sit down with someone and completely disagree with them, and then tell them how much I like them or how much I love them, how much I appreciate their viewpoint, even if I disagree, because I may be wrong at the end of the day. I don't have it all figured out.
Right.
The day I do, I think I'll be airlifted out of here. I don't think the Lord will let me live another day, because I want to always be ever learning and ever growing. And so it is critical that we talk to, listen to, sit with, enjoy the company of people who don't think like us. It's helpful. I was approached by a man yesterday at our meetup who said, "Is this a Christian thing?" And I said, "Oh, no." I said, well, it depends on who you ask. If you ask me, it is, because that's who I am. But if you ask her, and I pointed to probably not. And he said, well, just a lot of y'all have been mentioning God and stuff. And he said, would someone who's Muslim be welcome here? I said, absolutely. We're here to help everybody. This is not exclusive.
Yeah, I've that's something that, and when I went through my journey of figuring out God, because I didn't believe in God, it's like, well, so many people live the God's words and way. What is all this stuff? And recognizing it's our social cultural lives, and that all communities see God in one way or another. It's just part of our nature, whether you're Taoist, Buddhist, Hindu, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, or all the infinite gods within that, and even our ancient religions that I don't know very much about, but back to nature, it is part of who and what we are, and so I think the God is still important to talk about. And when we talk about it in a way that it is all of us, and everyone wants love and kindness and generosity and to be listened to in some way. And I think that's the practice that we're finding. And if you look at Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, they're really all part of the same brotherhood. And ultimately, I read the New Testament in the Bhagavad Gita. There's all similarities. We're all sort of joining together. That's the way we are.
It's interesting how in Eastern religion specifically, there are a lot of parallels. Yeah, there's a lot of parallels that you see. For us, we found our life and our hope in the God of the Bible, the Scriptures, the God of the Jewish, the Yahweh.
Yeah.
And so that's where we have found our path. There is something inside of us. It's called the Imago Dei in Latin, which is the image of God. We're all created in His image, the Imago Dei. But there's another piece of that where one of the names for God is Elohim, and that's actually the name that speaks towards the creative element in all of us. So when we come up with a creative idea, I'll say, oh, that's the Elohim element.
Yeah.
But it may not even be in a person who's a believer. It could be in a musician that plays a song that just makes you cry. And you go, that's the Elohim element. That's God. That's the Imago Dei operating in that individual. Even if that individual hasn't yet acknowledged that, it's still operative.
Words are powerful. And God is powerful, and carnivore is powerful. And these are words that tweak us, that make us go like, it's like there's some anger in it, or there's some joy in it. And how do we bring these ideas together that I don't believe in God and I believe in God, I don't believe in carnivore, I believe in carnivore, and they all exist, the yin and the yang, together. They're not separate.
To me, it's living an integrous life. We live an integrated life. That's why I go back to my simple mind, body, spirit. And I use a silly illustration of a stool.
Yes. Tell us about that.
It's a three-legged stool. You cut 2 inches off of that stool. Maybe that leg represents your mind. Okay, you're a spiritual person. Okay, you're a gym rat, whatever. You take care of yourself. But if your mind is not whole and not healthy, and you're not hitting on, in Texas terms, all 8 cylinders, then that stool is now rendered dysfunctional. You cannot sit on that stool. It can't function properly. And so there's something about the integration of these three. We're tripartite. We're mind, body, spirit beings. The integration of those 3 parts so that there's balance. And once that balance happens, it's amazing the life that happens. When you meet people that have that, you just know it. You know, and you're knower. You might not can put it into words, but there's something that you find yourself drawn to them or connecting to them or wanting to be in their presence, to be around them. Why? Because their mind, body, and spirit is integrated.
Yeah.
And so to walk that out, we say where you live, work, and play. We walk this out where we live, where we work, and where we play. Those are the 3 realms we do life in, right?
Yeah.
And so, but we want to have integrity in each of those realms. So I'm the same person where I play as I am where I live. And the same person where I work is where I play. And that level of integrity, it transcends the stuff of life, and people will see that in you. You don't have to announce it. You don't have to wear a T-shirt. I don't wear Jesus T-shirts.
Although we did buy your T-shirt.
We did, actually. Oh. Actually, you did, didn't you?
I sure did.
We don't normally advertise anything, not even as being a Christian. I don't put bumper stickers on my car and stuff because I want my life to speak. Yeah. And it's amazing when you get in. There are things that transcend words even. There's something that happens when you're around people. Call it energy. I call it the spirit. Yeah. Right. You just know.
Mm-hmm. It's good.
Anything that you wanted to ask me?
What made you become a doctor? Because of your life being, you had a hard time in the education field. So how in the world would you ever want to be a doctor?
The grace of God.
Good for you.
Well, so I wasn't the student kid, but I did love to help around the house. I was a helper. And I started working when I was 10 at a boat launching ramp in Newport Beach, Southern California. And I loved that. And George, I opened the place at 4 a.m. for the fishermen coming, pumped gas and sold food, just frozen hot dogs and, crazy stuff. And, saw my sister suffering. And in high school, I was in a ceramics class, and Mrs. Wong taught me to do ceramics and jewelry. And I used to make those things, and I really loved it. I was good at it. So I found myself good at something. And I did art, and I did some basic science classes, and I was good at math. I couldn't read, but I was good at math. Mrs. Hafner in the 4th grade embarrassed me. She kissed me in front of the class because I could solve any math question and nobody else could do it. And I had no idea that I even knew what I was doing. And so I went to Los Angeles City College Junior College back in 74. And back in 76, I broke my leg. And I met a doctor who inspired me. So a hippie doctor. And I was like, gee, I wonder what it takes to do that. Looks kind of interesting. I thought about business school and things like that, and political science as an undergrad degree, but I didn't understand any of it. And I went to the counseling office and looked at what it took, and I said, I'm in trouble. So I managed to get A's in every science class, math class, and I got a C in my history English classes because I couldn't read and comprehend the stories because I didn't see, for whatever reason, the complexities of the stories and how to analyze them because I couldn't read. And I went to catechism. I didn't go to Catholic school. I went to regular school. Only I could do is look at the pictures.
Wow.
But I was a worker and a doer, and I was dedicated, and here I am today.
To me, that's inspiring for anyone who wants to become a doctor, but they don't feel like they have the tools to do that.
What I've come to learn is that we all have the tools built in our DNA. And even when you look at someone with autism or any other sort of handicap, we label them more as handicaps, and then we say, well, you have this disease and, or whatever it is. But I'm realizing that that's how we approach it. But what if we approached everyone as intelligent and capable, and we need to work into those things. But now I found carnivore. I look back and I was like, oh my God, you mean our brains are damaged by the plant foods and low-fat diet we eat. So simply changing your diet can change your direction of life. And so that's the part that I just want to continue to shine the light on in my life. Let's see, we know that there are certain foods that damage the thyroid gland. Well, what if those same foods damage your brain, your kidneys, your liver, all those things? And I have pictures on my wall at my office of Dave Kilmer, Maria, my sister, Jim Slotnick, Craig Humphrey. These are friends that have passed earlier than they should have. Jim died of glioblastoma in his 3rd year of medical school in his early 20s. And I never understood, well, why did Jim get cancer? But when my friend Dave got cancer at 52, I'm like, okay, where is it? And then after being shown at the right time in my life, the carnivore lifestyle, it now all makes sense. And so I'm a helper and a healer, but really it's the God light energy that really shines on all of us and directs us. And so the why part of it, I often say, I don't really know why, but he gives us the way. So I never ask God why. I just say, show me the way. And that, I think, has been the most powerful thing that I've learned in my life. And I've gone through divorce and loss of health and friends and, jobs and money and things like that. And I found myself in a place that I never dreamed of way back when, but each little sharing of the next step and the next light gives you a whole new vantage point. And so my drive is, what can I do to help you to heal, and that you don't need me? That's the real beauty of it.
Love that. So wow. And this leads into my question for you, and it is, how do you maintain this living up? We say live up in a down world. You're that. You're the picture of that. You're the poster child. If I looked up in the dictionary, living up in a down world, your picture's there. So you're that. And that's what we have been so attracted to you. And that's why I said, he's a brother from another mother. We could be friends. I could hang out with this guy. So tell me what drives you? I mean, at 5 o'clock in the morning, you're up and you act like you've had 3 pots of coffee, but you haven't.
Zero.
You're just up.
Zero.
So tell me what keeps you up and alive.
Faith in God, that He is guiding and directing each and every one of us in the direction we're supposed to be. And wherever we're at the moment, it's perfect. And whatever God gave me, this life, this energy, this direction, I think carnivore has certainly expanded it. I rarely touch alcohol. It's only small amounts, sips, very rare. Coffee, I've been off for almost 2 years, essentially. And I really have, in my suffering, I found that the words we think drive everything in our lives.
Absolutely, 100%.
And it's like, wait a minute. You mean I have control over choice? Isn't that what ultimately he says? Ultimately, you have choice.
Yes, free will.
He gave us free will. Yeah.
And I always kind of fought that one. I said, oh, wait a minute, there's no free will. It doesn't make sense. But we have the choice to choose what we think of every single event in our lives. So I went back and relabeled everything.
Wow.
And now I see it all with love.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I had not talked to my ex-wife in many years. My daughter and I had for years had a very strained and non-communicating relationship. But when I finally realized that it's all love, even in the hardships. And so when I realized I must love through my heart and soul, the spirit, and the thinking is so critical.
Yes.
Choose. And you can choose a good day, a bad day, a right day, wrong day, bad weather, good weather, easy or hard. But if God creates everything good for us, that changed my life. And in the regal nature of lions. And we live in a temple, not the amusement park. And so we must choose. Do we drink that drink or eat that food or stay up and out late at night or do things that are ultimately not in our best favor of God's temple?
Right, because we are the temple of the Holy Spirit, which is why our bodies are the temple, and we need to treat our bodies the way God would intend us to treat it. And I think that's the problem, is we've been taught just this erroneous information about we can eat anything and it be fine. And I hate seeing people's health go down because they're overweight, they can't walk. My mother was sedentary most of her life. She died at 90, I think she was 92 or 93. I can't remember the exact. But she was sedentary, and I remember we used to walk all the time. I mean, we walk a lot, but every day I would get up and walk before I went to work. And my mother, I'll never forget her telling me, I think she was about 85, when she said that, don't stop because you'll end up like me. Because in her 70s, she couldn't walk. She couldn't walk to a store in the mall without just having to stop, catch her breath. And she wasn't grossly overweight, but she was sedentary, and she ate poorly. And that was an incentive, watching her at a young age not be able to have the quality of life that God's called us to walk. And yet she was a Christian and could speak any scripture out of the Bible, but she couldn't take care of her body the way God intended us to. And so that's just another reason that we want to live to be 100. With a good mind and good physical body. And the only way we can do that is by staying with the carnivore diet.
You love music.
Oh, yeah.
Bruce Springsteen's my mother's cousin's son, so I have
gosh.
the DNA.
Your mother's
claim to
cousin's
fame.
It's the
son.
claim to fame. But I learned to play the guitar in my 50s and sing in my 50s. My daughter said, "Dad, you can't sing." And then one day she said, "Wow, Dad, you're pretty good." And one of the things, my daughter just had a baby, and I was there for it. Relationships have changed because of changing our mindset.
Yes.
And that's the beauty of it.
Do you have a relationship with your ex-wife again?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So that's the beauty of it. It's all sort of come full circle.
Beautiful.
That's
and
amazing.
It's really been a beautiful thing to all come together with this beautiful baby and rebuild our relationships with love and kindness. And
Love that.
Yeah.
Final words to share with our human community.
First of all, there is no judgment. There's just compassion. We learned a long time ago we have to move from contempt to compassion. And even about the medical industry, it's easy to rail on that, but we have compassion for that, but also compassion for yesterday, for example. We were at a meetup, wonderful time, and a room full of wonderful people. And I saw that a lot of them were there, and they're still in that place of struggle. They haven't quite broken through the boundaries yet. And I had nothing but compassion and gratitude that they were there. And so I would speak to anyone who hears this. First of all, I don't think it's an accident that they've heard this conversation. I think God led them to this. The Bible says your steps are ordered by the Lord, and He delights in every detail of your life. In the Psalm 37. And I believe that, so whoever's listening to this, it's not an accident.
Right.
There's a reason. And what we would want you to have is not look at finished product and say, I could never look like her or like him. But think about in terms of what can you do? Where can you go from where you are now? It can be better. It can get better. I love what you said yesterday in one of your conversations. And you said it's not a one size fits all in terms of how we look. We're not trying to look like Adonis. We're there. You've got to find that best version of your body type and who you are. I gave up trying to look like Schwarzenegger a long time ago. I tried hard.
You're close.
I tried hard during those early years, trust me. And it was ridiculous. It was unattainable and unreasonable and a waste of time, money, and a lot of things. And now I've settled into being at peace with being healthy and functional.
That's the most important.
And having functional strength and lean muscle mass and not trying to become something I'm not, but being thankful for who I am, but still wanting to grow, wanting to learn, and whatever that looks. And so I would say, I use these are my last words from yesterday, but I say it all the time: stay the course.
Yeah.
Stay the course. Worst thing a person can do is quit. That's it. It doesn't get any worse than that. So stay the course and celebrate the wins.
And if you deviate, go back. It's not like you even have to start all over. I mean, our bodies have memory.
Yeah, amazing.
So that's what I love about God and how He made us. And so all we have to do is just make a course correction. That's all we have to do.
Yeah.
It's because the holidays are hard. The holidays are hard for most people. That's probably what we hear the most from people is, well, it's the holidays. I've got to partake. Well, do it in moderation, but then get back on the horse and get going. And
one simple last thing.
Yeah.
And this is where we sometimes have a hard time. We're okay with loving God. We're okay with loving others. We understand that, but very few of us are good at loving ourselves. And I always say we need to give the same grace to ourselves that we readily and easily give to others, especially when you're taking on a new challenge, taking on a new opportunity. There's going to be setbacks, but I believe a setback is a setup for a grand comeback. So let the setback be like an archer drawing a bow. The deeper he draws it, the stronger that arrow's going to fly. And again, reframing. You said you changed your words. I do that. I try to reframe everything into a positive, into something that's life-giving. And so even the setbacks can be a good thing because they can be a setup for a grand comeback.
I love it. I love it.
You can tell he's a preacher. He's got a lot of good little Jimmy. We call them Jimmy-isms.
It's because I'm so simple. It's the only way I can remember things.
True.
Well, I look forward to the book that gives us those isms because I think those are critical for all of us.
Yes.
And each of us has something to share to help one person in this universe make the changes.
Yeah.
Well, blessings and gratitude.
Oh, thank you so much for having us.
Being here.
You're truly a brother.
I love it.
Thank you.